Welcome back to. Before you spend that old penny, stop for just a moment and look at the date. What if a tiny copper coin sitting unnoticed in a jar, drawer, or collection could be connected to a story worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? Today, Coin Seller Network is taking a close look at one of America's most recognizable old coins, the 1952 Lincoln Wheat Penny. At first glance, it may look like nothing more than an ordinary 1-cent piece, but collectors know that the smallest details can sometimes make a huge difference. And when we talk about extraordinary condition, unusual errors, rare varieties, or remarkable auction discoveries, figures as high as $605,000 can capture the imagination of collectors everywhere. But what exactly makes a 1952 wheat penny interesting, and what should you look for before deciding that your old coin is just 1 cent? Stay with me because we are going to examine the history, design, mint marks, condition, varieties, errors, and the clues that could separate an ordinary 1952 penny from a truly fascinating collectible. 1952 Lincoln Wheat Penny. The Lincoln Wheat Penny is one of the most famous American coins ever produced. The series began in 1909, and it became the first regular United States coin to feature a real historical person. That person was President Abraham Lincoln, whose portrait appears on the obverse. On the reverse, 2 wheat ears surround the words 1 cent and United States of America, along with the famous motto E pluribus unum. This classic design continued until 1958, making the 1952 penny part of the final decade of the original wheat cent era. The 1952 Lincoln Wheat Penny was produced during an important period in American history. The United States was entering the post-war era, and the country was experiencing major economic, industrial, and cultural changes. Millions of Lincoln Wheat Pennies were being struck and circulated across the nation. Because of that large production, most 1952 pennies are not automatically rare. This is one of the most important facts every beginner collector should understand. A coin being old does not automatically make it extremely valuable. Age is only one part of the story. So why should you check a 1952 penny? Because condition, mint location, strike quality, varieties, and errors can dramatically change collector interest. Start with the date. On the front of the coin, look directly below the portrait of Abraham Lincoln. You should see the year 1952. Then check whether there is a small mint mark beneath the date. A D indicates the Denver Mint, while an S indicates the San Francisco Mint. If there is no mint mark, that generally indicates the Philadelphia Mint for this era. This small detail can be extremely important when identifying your coin. 2 pennies with the same year can have different mintages and different collector demand. So never look only at the year. Look at the entire coin. Next, examine the condition. This is where many collectors become extremely interested. A 1952 wheat penny that spent decades circulating may show scratches, discoloration, flattened details, and worn lettering. That type of coin can still be collectible, but its value is generally much lower than a sharply preserved example. Now imagine finding a 1952 penny with strong original detail, clean surfaces, sharp wheat lines, and very little evidence of circulation. Suddenly, you are looking at a very different type of collectible. Coins preserved in exceptionally high grades can attract serious attention because millions of ordinary examples were handled, spent, dropped, scratched, and exposed to the elements. Pay special attention to Lincoln's hair, cheek, jawline, and the lettering around the portrait. On the reverse, examine the wheat ears and the words 1 cent. The individual wheat lines should be carefully inspected. Strong details can help indicate a well-preserved coin, although proper grading requires professional examination. And this is where the condition of the copper becomes important. A beautiful reddish color can sometimes be a desirable characteristic on an uncirculated Lincoln cent. Collectors may describe coins using color designations such as brown, or red. However, color alone does not guarantee a huge value. A coin must be evaluated as a complete object, including grade, surfaces, strike, originality, and possible varieties or errors. Now let's talk about errors, because this is where an ordinary-looking penny can become much more interesting. During the minting process, coins can occasionally experience production mistakes. Examples can include doubled elements, off-center strikes, die cracks, clips, broad strikes, and other abnormalities. But there is an important warning. Not every unusual-looking mark is a mint error. Damage that happens after a coin leaves the mint can create scratches, dents, flattening, or distorted lettering that may look unusual but has no special collectible premium. For that reason, if your 1952 wheat penny appears dramatically different from a normal example, don't immediately clean it, polish it, scratch it, or try to improve its appearance. Cleaning an old coin can permanently reduce its collector appeal. Instead, preserve the coin exactly as you found it and compare it carefully with trusted references or have it examined by a qualified numismatist. Another important factor is authenticity. When a coin is associated online with an enormous value such as $605,000, collectors should be extremely cautious. A headline claiming that a particular 1952 penny is worth $605,000 does not mean every 1952 wheat penny has that value. Extraordinary prices generally depend on extraordinary circumstances, such as exceptional grade, rare characteristics, authentication, provenance, or a competitive auction environment. That distinction is critical. If you search through a box of old coins and find a 1952 Lincoln Wheat Penny, you should not assume you have discovered a $605,000 coin. Instead, treat that number as an example of the kind of headline-grabbing valuation sometimes associated with exceptionally rare or unusual coins. Your goal should be identification first, preservation second, and valuation third. Take a close look at the mint mark. Is it AD, an S, or no mint mark? Then examine the surfaces under good lighting. Avoid using harsh chemicals. A magnifying glass can help you inspect small details around the date, lettering, Lincoln's portrait, and the wheat stalks. Also compare the coin with known examples. If something appears doubled, don't simply assume it is a valuable double die. Machine doubling, die deterioration, and ordinary wear can create confusing appearances. True varieties need careful identification. The weight and physical characteristics of the coin can also be useful when authenticity is in question. A genuine 1952 Lincoln wheat cent was made primarily of bronze, and it has the familiar appearance of an old copper-colored American penny. If your coin looks dramatically different, that can be a reason to investigate further, although appearance alone cannot establish rarity. One of the biggest mistakes new collectors make is believing that every old coin is valuable simply because it survived for decades. In reality, many old coins remain relatively common. What makes a coin exciting is the combination of scarcity, condition, demand, and documented characteristics. The 1952 Lincoln Wheat Penny is especially fascinating because it belongs to the final years of the classic wheat cent design. After 1958, the reverse changed, ending nearly half a century of the iconic wheat ear design. That history gives the coin a special place in American numismatics. Think about what this little penny has witnessed. It was struck more than 70 years ago. It may have passed through stores, cash registers, pockets, banks, and countless hands. It could have been saved by someone who recognized its historic design, or it could have disappeared into circulation for decades. Today, it may be sitting inside an old collection waiting to be rediscovered. And that is the real excitement of coin hunting. You don't need to own a famous collection to begin. Sometimes the hunt starts with a single old penny. If you have a 1952 Lincoln Wheat Penny, check the date, identify the mint mark, examine the condition, look for unusual characteristics, and most importantly, avoid cleaning it. If you believe your coin has a genuine mint error or an unusually high grade, professional authentication and grading can help determine what you actually have. And remember the $605,000 figure we mentioned at the beginning. It makes for an exciting possibility, but it should never be treated as a guaranteed value for an ordinary 1952 wheat penny. Coin values can vary dramatically, and exceptional auction prices apply only to specific coins under specific circumstances. So before you throw that old wheat penny into a jar or spend it without a second thought, take a closer look. The date might be common, but the condition could be unusual. The mint mark could tell you something important. The surfaces might reveal a genuine mint-made characteristic. And the story behind that tiny coin could be far more interesting than its 1 cent face value suggests. This is Coin Seller Network, where every old coin has a story and every discovery begins with taking a closer look. If you enjoy Lincoln Wheat Pennies, rare coins, valuable errors, and hidden treasures in everyday change, make sure you stay connected with the channel. Check your old pennies, compare the details, protect anything unusual, and never underestimate what careful observation can reveal. Because sometimes, the difference between an ordinary penny and an extraordinary collectible isn't the size of the coin. It's the tiny detail you almost missed. If you want, I can also make this more viral and suspenseful, with stronger retention hooks and repeated curiosity loops for a 10-minute YouTube video. What if one of the most ordinary-looking coins in your pocket could be hiding a story worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? Before you spend that old Lincoln penny, stop and look at the date. If you see 1980, you may be holding a coin that deserves a much closer inspection. Welcome back to Coin Seller Network, where we uncover the history, hidden details, minting varieties, errors, and potential value of American coins. Today, our entire focus is on one fascinating coin, the 1980 Lincoln penny. And while most 1980 pennies are common and are not worth anywhere near a fortune, extraordinary examples with unusual characteristics, exceptional preservation, or significant minting errors can attract serious collector interest. You may even see eye-catching claims of values reaching as high as $605,000 for exceptional coins. But what could possibly make a simple 1980 penny so interesting? What should you look for on yours? And how can you tell the difference between an ordinary circulated penny and a coin that deserves professional attention? Stay with me because by the end of this video you'll know exactly where to look. 1980 Lincoln Penny. The 1980 Lincoln penny belongs to one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. The Lincoln cent was introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. By 1980, the famous Lincoln portrait had already appeared on American pennies for more than 7 decades. On the front of the 1980 penny, you'll find the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right. Above his head is the word Liberty, while the date 1980 appears on the right side. The motto "I in God we trust" is positioned above Lincoln's portrait. Depending on where the coin was struck, you may also find a small mint mark below the date. Turn the coin over and you will see the memorial reverse. This design had replaced the classic wheat reverse in 1959, meaning the 1980 penny does not have wheat ears on the back. Instead, the Lincoln memorial appears prominently in the center, surrounded by United States of America, 1 cent, and the motto E pluribus unum. For many people, this is simply a common copper-colored penny from the early 1980s. But coin collecting is all about details, and the details can make an enormous difference. The first thing you should check is the mint mark. A 1980 Lincoln penny can be found with different mint origins, and the mint mark can help identify where your coin was produced. A D indicates Denver, while an S indicates San Francisco. Philadelphia coins from this period generally have no mint mark. Why does this matter? Because collectors don't evaluate a coin based only on its date. They consider the date, mint mark, condition, strike, varieties, errors, and overall rarity together. Now take a closer look at the condition. This is one of the most important factors in determining the collectible appeal of any Lincoln cent. Imagine 2 identical 1980 pennies. One has spent decades circulating through pockets, cash registers, parking lots, and vending machines. Its surface is scratched, Lincoln's hair is worn, and the memorial building on the reverse has lost some of its sharpness. The other coin was carefully preserved shortly after it was minted. Its surfaces remain bright and clean, the original details are sharp, and there is little or no evidence of circulation. Those 2 coins may have the same date, but collectors could view them very differently. This is why you should never judge an old penny simply by looking at its age. A coin from 1980 is not automatically rare because it is more than 40 years old. Large numbers of 1980 Lincoln cents were produced, and many examples remain available today. The real excitement comes from finding an example with something unusual, and that brings us to mint errors. Errors are among the most exciting discoveries for coin hunters. During the complicated process of producing coins, mistakes can occasionally occur. Planchet can be improperly struck. A die can develop a crack. A coin can be struck off-center. Letters or numbers can sometimes show unusual doubling. Portions of the design may appear incomplete or distorted. But here's something extremely important. Not every strange-looking penny is a valuable error. A coin can become damaged after leaving the mint. It may be hit by another object, scratched against other coins, exposed to chemicals, or altered intentionally. Post-mint damage can sometimes look dramatic, but it usually does not create the kind of premium that genuine mint errors can command. So if your 1980 penny looks unusual, don't rush to clean it. In fact, cleaning may be one of the worst things you can do to a collectible coin. Scrubbing, polishing, soaking, or using chemicals can permanently alter the surface. Collectors generally prefer coins with original surfaces, and an improperly cleaned coin can lose significant appeal. Instead, place the coin somewhere safe and examine it carefully under good lighting. Start with Lincoln's portrait. Look around the date and mint mark. Examine the lettering. Then turn the coin over and inspect the Lincoln memorial. Look at the columns, steps, lettering, and edges. If you see apparent doubling, compare the coin with reliable reference images before assuming it is a valuable doubled die. Some forms of machine doubling can resemble genuine doubled dies but have very different collector significance. The same rule applies to unusual edges. An off-center strike can be particularly interesting if it is clearly the result of the minting process. The more dramatic and authentic the error, the more attention it may receive. But professional authentication is extremely important when you're dealing with a potentially valuable error. Now let's discuss the $605,000 figure. You may come across sensational claims suggesting that a 1980 Lincoln penny could be worth $605,000. That number can certainly grab attention, but it should not be interpreted as the normal value of an ordinary 1980 penny. A circulated 1980 Lincoln cent is generally not a $605,000 coin. A huge valuation would require extraordinary circumstances and would need to be supported by evidence, such as an exceptionally rare mint error, an unusual variety, extraordinary condition, authenticated provenance, or a documented auction result involving a specific coin. This distinction is essential for anyone watching coin collecting videos online. Viral headlines can make ordinary coins sound like guaranteed treasures. But professional numismatics is much more precise. The right question isn't, is every 1980 penny worth $605,000? The right question is, does my 1980 penny have characteristics that make it unusual enough to investigate? That is a much better approach. Another interesting factor is the composition of the 1980 Lincoln cent. The familiar copper-colored appearance comes from its bronze composition, unlike the later copper-plated zinc cents introduced in the early 1980s. This makes 1980 an interesting transitional point in the broader history of the Lincoln cent series. Collectors can also pay close attention to color and preservation. A high-grade coin with attractive original red color may be more desirable than a heavily circulated brown example. Professional grading services use established grading standards to evaluate these characteristics. If you believe you've found an exceptional coin, professional grading can be worthwhile. A certified grade provides an independent assessment of the coin's condition and can help establish authenticity and marketability. But before sending anything away, learn as much as you can about your coin. Check the date. Check the mint mark. Check the weight if authenticity or composition is a concern. Check the surfaces. Check the edge. Check the lettering. Check for genuine mint-made abnormalities. And most importantly, compare your coin with trustworthy references. You might discover that your 1980 penny is completely ordinary. And that's perfectly fine. Coin collecting isn't only about finding a fortune. It's about history, craftsmanship, preservation, and the excitement of discovery. Think about where this little coin could have been over the past 4 decades. It may have traveled across different states. It may have been held by several generations of people. It may have been placed into a child's piggy bank, spent at a grocery store, or forgotten inside an old drawer. Now imagine finding one with a remarkable mint error or extraordinary preservation. Suddenly, that tiny piece of metal becomes a fascinating piece of American history. And that is exactly why you should never judge a coin by its face value alone. The 1980 Lincoln penny carries a face value of just 1 cent, but its collecting story can be much more interesting. Most examples are common, but unusual specimens can attract attention from collectors and specialists. So the next time you come across a 1980 Lincoln penny, don't immediately toss it into a jar without looking. Turn it over. Check the mint mark. Study Lincoln's portrait. Inspect the memorial. Look for unusual details. And if something seems genuinely different, preserve the coin and have it properly evaluated. That rumored $605,000 figure should be treated as an extraordinary possibility associated with exceptional examples, not a guaranteed price for every 1980 penny. The real value of your coin depends on its specific characteristics, condition, rarity, authenticity, and what collectors are willing to pay for that particular example. This is Coin Seller Network, and remember, valuable coins aren't always hiding behind an obvious label. Sometimes the clue is a tiny mint mark. Sometimes it's an unusual strike. Sometimes it's exceptional condition. And sometimes it's a detail so small that thousands of people could overlook it. So before you spend your next old Lincoln penny, take a second look. Because the difference between an ordinary coin and an extraordinary discovery can sometimes be just one tiny detail.